Welcome to Putting the Pieces Together, a video podcast where I monologue on philosophical concepts, thought-provoking quotes, and ramble about general ideas, all while playing a relaxing yet mentally stimulating game of Tetris. Enjoy. This episode of Putting the Pieces Together, I wanted to talk about habits, or more specifically, building a habit, staying consistent, how to become who you're meant to be, and all that good stuff. To center myself in this conversation, I'm choosing a quote by American essayist and philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson, born 1803, and it goes as such: sow a thought, and you reap an action. Sow an action, and you reap a habit. Sow a habit, and you reap a character. Sow a character, and you reap a destiny. My initial thoughts when I first read that quote was, I appreciated how it begun. I appreciated I don't know, importance is the right word, but just, I feel like it can be underappreciated, the amount of maybe effort or significance just having the first thought, sowing the first thought can have. I do believe that not only is the first step of doing anything is thinking of doing it, even the most fleeting of thoughts can provide an opportunity to be productive. Waldo kind of positions it as a chain of progression of cause and effect. I see it in a similar way. Kind of like, you can't really do anything without thinking of it first. I know it sounds kind of simple and silly, but even like this Tetris game, every time I see a new piece, my first action has to be thinking of where I could put it, and from then I can take action. Kind of similarly to Tetris, I feel often there could be a sense of urgency, or time can feel like it's rushing you, and you can almost overcompensate and try to slow down. Well, in the same vein, sow a thought and you reap an action. I think reap is an interesting word to use because it kind of takes away from the deliberateness, or rather from it makes it so it's the action comes from the thought, not from yourself. You're not creating the action out of nothing. You're not spontaneously combusting the action of like, oh no, I'm gonna do this. The action itself comes from the thought. There's another quote I saw, Ralph Wardo Emerson, from his essay Self-Reliance, 1841, where he says, "A man is what he thinks about all day long." I didn't choose that one to be the main quote for this episode, but I did think it was very helpful in me kind of putting together my thoughts on habits and building habits, especially related to putting pieces together and this podcast and this series, where if you look this is only the second episode so far, but if you look at the amount of time it took between me putting out the first episode and me putting out this episode, you might think I got busy, or, well, let me keep it personal. It's easy for me to think, oh, I got busy, or I was just being lazy, or even maybe worst of all, to think that my passion was placed elsewhere, my time was placed elsewhere, my attention was placed elsewhere, my thoughts placed elsewhere. But really, that's not the case. In fact, the more not aggravating, but maybe internally frustrating aspect of trying to be consistent and building new habits is the fact that you aren't necessarily distracted. It's not like you don't want to do it. For instance, I had a thought, and I was told this also by a friend of mine in terms of getting this other episode out, where many a night in the weeks between this episode and the last one, many a night on a consistent basis, whether I was lying in bed at the end of the day or in the shower or on the road or just anywhere for half an hour to hour time period. I spent that time thinking, ruminating, pondering, doing essentially, if not literally, exactly what I'm doing right now. And it took me many a night to realize that while I was procrastinating on recording this episode, I was in fact putting pieces together all the time. In fact, almost as if I had forgotten somehow the very reason or one of the inspirations for even starting this was that this was already something I did in my off time, spare time, all the time. And I figured I'd put paper to pen or voice to mic, I guess. So upon realizing that I was already essentially doing unrecorded episodes of putting pieces together completely in my head to myself, all I gotta do is just do it in front of a mic. All I gotta do is reap the action of the thought. Sow a thought and you reap an action. Sow an action and you reap a habit. Doing an action, and this I do believe to be true, doing an action makes you more likely to do it again. The first time doing something is always, if not the hardest, the most daunting, because it's unfamiliar. Unfamiliar things are uncomfortable. There's insecurity, there's uncertainty, unpredictability. Nothing's assured, guaranteed. Doing the thing, or I just say synonyms, but. And even for myself, I don't like doing things for the first time. Even if that thing is something that I know I'll probably like doing, many of the things that I enjoy to this day on a consistent basis that become part of my identity, the first time I was maybe nervous, but not nervous of my capability, but it was new. It was unfamiliar. But the first time I do an action, like the first time I recorded this podcast, I proved to myself that I was capable of doing it. I proved to myself that it was something that I do, and it became that much easier, and I became that much more inclined to do it therefore after. Regardless of how long it took me to get this episode out, finishing that first episode and hitting publish and putting it out, it definitely released some of the pressure or some of the, like I said earlier, dauntingness of recording these. Go in action and you reap a habit. I think another part of the quote, because like I said earlier, reaping means that you're not creating it out of nowhere yourself. You're not just making yourself a habit. You're sowing the action, and the action brings forth to you the habit. There's another quote I saw while doing research on Wardo Emerson. Side note, tangent. When people have multiple names, or like 3 names, or a nice strong first, middle, and last name, I like saying all 3 every time, especially historical figures. If that was how you remember, if that here legacy was marked, I'm gonna hit it every time, and it's just fun. But this is another quote by Ralph Wardo Emerson, also in 1841, in his book, which I believe is might be a compilation or a collection of his essays, Spiritual Laws, and it reads as such: cause and effect, seed and fruit, means and ends cannot be severed, for the effect already blooms in the cause, the end preexists in the means. This kind of helped me wrap my head around in terms of like sowing and reaping. Not so much as just reaping, it delivers or brings to you once you sow the thing, but like a seed and a fruit. The seed's already in the fruit, you know, means and ends. So saying that they cannot be severed, the effect already blooms in the cause, the end exists in the means. It takes it from being a straight line, or even how I initially and think of it as like a chain, a chain or assembly line of productivity, into more of a circle, a loop, or to dare I mention metaphysics. How they say like wormholes kind of exist as time and space folding on itself, or two atoms or two particles coexisting into, you know, I really should have known better than to bring up science in a philosophy podcast. Or at least I didn't do any research on this part, but from my memory, I forgot what it's called, but the phenomenon where you can have two particles that can be linked, where one action or one thing that happened to one particle is instantaneously and equally replicated or also applied to that. Regardless, my point is that it takes it from being step 1 to step 5 or whatever, to as soon as you start it, you have done it. Or rather, starting it is doing it. For an example, the way I like to record is, you know, I do the prep, I think about it, I imagine it, visualize it. I might even do a dry run with the mic not recording and just talk out maybe the first 1 or 2 minutes as if it is recording. But I truly know, and I operate like this for most performance things or just really anything I have to do, where once I start, I'm in it. And once you start, you're on the way to finishing it, so you practically already done it. So I always hover over the record button for half a second, and eventually, and I'm just blazing this now, I just have a thought of clicking the button, and I click my finger, clicks the button. So once the finger's the button and the red light is on, I just start talking, and whatever preparation I did comes to the forefront. You know, whatever thoughts I had prepared come forward, and whatever happens in the moment happens. Whatever happens, happens. Back to the original quote. I'm going to be doing a lot of rereading of this quote because it's kind of long and there's multiple parts, and I really want to be careful not to talk just for talking or rush through it and not give myself time to think, because this is all about thinking. Entirely the point. Speaking of thinking, sow a thought and you reap an action. Sow an action and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. I feel like, speaking for myself once again, because that's one person I can't speak for, I feel like I exist, and if I dare extrapolate and generalize, many people exist in somewhere in between sowing an action and reaping a habit, and sowing a habit and reaping a character. It almost feels as if you can only intentionally get halfway through. Kind of. Let me break this down or run through this. Test my own logic here. Reasoning. Sow a thought. I don't think you can intentionally sow a thought. I think thoughts kind of come to you based on who you are and what you thought before. It's almost a habit to itself. It might not be a loop like I thought, or even 2 interlinked particles. It might be a 8-dimensional spiral. But yeah, I don't think you so much as sow a thought as you, to use a to go forward on the agricultural farming metaphor of sowing and reaping, or in terms of a thought or an idea, I feel like you don't sow the thought, you don't plant the thought in your own head like you would a seed into the ground. I think you are the ground. Your mind is the field. I think you prepare it. I think maybe you can water it, nurture it, make it fertile, and leave it open and available for when seeds are placed in it, they can grow and flourish and bloom. And I think those are the thoughts. So I think you leave yourself open to ideas and open-mindedness, and based on past thoughts that came into your head that you ruminated on or allowed or acknowledged, you're delivered almost new thoughts. So maybe I do disagree with Big Ralph. Only a little bit though. So with that, and you reap in action. In terms of intentionality, I think actions can be intentional. So like, you think a thought and you reap the action because you had the thought, you can do the action, kind of like that. The action was already metaphysically there, even if you hadn't done it. But in terms of sowing an action, now you're making a decision, you're doing that, it's intentional, you're sowing the action, you are doing it, you're planting the seed. Sow the action and you reap a habit. Habits are interesting. Habit has an interesting distinction, I think, just by definition. I don't have definition on me. An oversight, now that I think of it, but a thought I feel like is easily quantifiable, or maybe qualifiable, but the word must be. A thought, singular thought, an idea, you know what it is. An action is an action, a singular action, you do something. But a habit, at what point do actions, a collection of actions, at what point do they become a habit? What metric or guideline or threshold of factors, may it be consistency, may it be intensity, maybe it be intentionality, maybe it be just straight quantity, I don't know. For instance, let's take running. I've been running recently. If I run one time, or let's go to the beginning, thoughts. If I have the thought to run, I had the thought to run. If I do the action of running just one time, I did the action of running. But at what point does it become a habit of running? At what point? Is it 2 runs? Is it 3 runs? Is it 4 runs? Is it how consistent or how much of a pattern and predictability I do the runs? Say on a weekly basis, if I run on Monday, the next week I run Monday again, the next week I run Monday again, does that make it a habit? What if I run on Monday, then next week I run on Tuesday, next week I run on Wednesday? Is that a habit if it's on different days? I would say yes. I ran every week, 3 weeks in a row. But what if, for 1 week, I ran 3 days out the week, and then for the next 3 weeks, I did not run. I ran the same amount of times as I did in the earlier scenario. So is that a habit? End of the day, these are all subjective. One of the kind of the list of things that don't have any actual metric to measure it by. There's no authority figure who will deem you invalid or not. Ultimately, the authority figure is yourself, by your own metric, by your own standards. Which I do think brings us to the second half of the quote. Sow a habit and you reap a character. If a habit, let's just say for conversational sake, a habit is just repeated actions. Repeated actions done, I would say, almost unconsciously or requiring little internal, intentional, mental, or external provocation. Repeated actions done in that way transcend from just something that you do to something that you are. In a way, as Mr. Ralph put it, sowing the habit, you reap a character. If you continually do something, if you're continually inclined to do something, the more and more inclined you are to do it, the more it becomes almost automatic. The more it goes less from an action to a state of being, like going from being a kid and being taught to brush your teeth, and going to the bathroom and thinking, oh, I should brush my teeth. Going to the bathroom and thinking, oh, I brushed my teeth over and over and over, until eventually go to the bathroom to wash your hands and you end up brushing your teeth. And it's only 5 p.m. That's happened to me on multiple occasions. One of those actions or habit that just becomes so intrinsic to who you are, or intrinsic to your routine or to your life, that it becomes who you are. I think this with like sports or hobbies. You take sport. If you play football, maybe you just decide to play football once, cool. Play football a couple times, cool. Maybe you join a league or play with some friends and you start playing on a regular basis. And say you play on Sundays. Every Sunday you're like, oh, maybe I should play some football. I want to play some football today. Until eventually, when you wake up on a Sunday, you just be ready to play football. You go to sleep, have football dreams, you'll wake up, hamstrings flexing, quads already a little tense, ready to run and catch that pigskin. And at that point, playing football is no longer something you do. It has become, at least to some small degree, to a non-zero degree, it's become something you are. You are football. It's kind of what I'm hoping will be me as I continue this series with playing Tetris. Because admittedly, I will admit, when I first had the idea to do this, I thought I was going to be amazing at Tetris. I don't know why. Kind of I wouldn't say flaw, but maybe a quirk of mine, where some things I just feel like line up with things I should be good at. Which hilariously often end up being things I'm not the best at, but I do think that makes for better enjoyment on both ends. But if I keep recording these videos and episodes, which I will, no matter how long it takes, I will. It goes from Tetris being a game I play to I will be Tetris, or a Tetris player, or whatever. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. As we reaching the final part of Mr. Emerson's quote, sow a character and you reap a destiny. This part of the quote, it seems almost existential to think about it. To reap a destiny, of all we've been saying so far, the seed and the fruit, the end pre-existing in the means itself, cause and effect, unable to be severed. If I say that once you have the thought, you've already, to some degree, in some regard, done the action, then I guess I must also say that if you sow the character, if you are that person, then already to some degree you have that destiny. Destiny's an interesting thing. Again, another qualifiable, whatever, another idea or another concept that there's no authority to really deem what is destiny and what is not. It's not even agreed upon if it exists, or even what the destiny of it is. Destiny, fate, all of the above. But what I believe it to mean, to sow a character and reap a destiny, is who you are, the person you are. You're almost like a vehicle. The person you are is the vehicle that carries yourself, that guides your trajectory forward. I guess I could say that a person who does something will go on to do something. To extend the football example, which I don't know why I picked. I'm not very familiar with playing football. I used to be good at 2-in-touch back in the day, but if you play football to the point where it becomes part of your identity, it's almost an unconscious desire or inclination you have. You are football. Then, you being football, you have a destiny of being football. If you play football, you will play more football, or you will do football things, or in some regard have a football destiny. Your future, your development, your trajectory, your path will be tied, is already tied to football. To bring it back to myself and this series, these episodes, I don't know if I could say I'm at the point where I've reaping a character. That's because I don't know if I'm at the point where I could say that this is a habit, where I've reaped a habit. And like we've established, there's no authority figure, there's no governing body, no one sponsoring me or hiring me, or I'm not at a company putting the pieces together, incorporated, where I make this for them. This is me. This is my own. I am the authority, I am the boss, the CEO, all of the above. I am the ruler and the stick. So only I will know, only I can deem when this has become a habit. And I always think these type of things to be, it is the case when you lack unsurety. Unsurety? I don't know if that's a word, but you guys my meaning. If Shakespeare can make up words, then so can we. I think that until I can confidently say that I feel like making these episodes is a habit of mine, that is when I truly reap the habit. And after that, hopefully, I can say, or rather not say, but reap the character. In fact, the benefit and the positivity of this mindset or this viewpoint perspective is that once I can confidently say that this is a habit, once I truly feel in my soul that this is a habit, once I unconsciously or with little provocation, with little reminder from friends and family, with little waking moments of night of I should have put the mic on to record this conversation I had for myself, once it gets to this time of night, and once I have these thoughts in my head, and all of a sudden I'm booting up the software and moving the mic, once I just wake up feeling that Tetris bug, it'll be a habit. And at that point, I already, to some degree, to a non-zero degree, be a putting the pieces together character. And that's a very exciting thought, because that means at that point, once that is sowed, to some degree, to a non-zero amount, I will have a putting the pieces together destiny. And that's all I really want. Well, not in life. Sorry, I got a little too sentimental there. Esoteric. I want a lot. Not a lot, but I want more than just this. But I do very much want this. I do find myself with a question as I'm finishing up here, trying to consolidate and pull together my thoughts. what is the most important part of the process? What is the most important habit? Is it progressing down the chain, the assembly line of cause and effect? Is it going from thought to destiny? Is that what's most important? Is that the most significant? Is that what I should be focusing on? Or is it sowing? Should all my energy and all my effort go towards encouraging and sowing thoughts, sowing actions, sowing characters? Is that how that works? How can I put this in action? Oftentimes, I feel like quotes, especially the more motivational ones, or inspiring ones, often feel like sticky note reminders you have on the doorway. You can't actually use them as tools to accomplish a task they're meant to motivate you to do for yourself. But the irony or paradoxical nature of it is that there is really no important part. Because, and stay with me here, seed and the fruit. If the end preexists the means, if sowing and reaping are particles irreparably tied, then if you sow the thought and you automatically reap the action, maybe not automatically, lack of a better word, but if those two could not be severed, then sowing the action, continuing down the chain assembly line, sowing the action and reaping the habit, that is another case of sowing and reaping that cannot be severed. But the sowing the action, that action is the same action you reaped. Therefore, by reaping that action, you also sow that action. Which means those two, that reap and sow combination, also cannot be severed. Following that, sow, reap, reap, sow, reap, reap, sow, reap, reap, sow, reap. If my math is correct, and don't check it, A equals Z. To sow the thought, sow a thought, and you reap a destiny. I think I'm reaching enlightenment. Not enlightenment, but I do think I've come to a conclusion of sorts, as well as a new level. Let's do this. All right. Sow a thought and you reap an action. Sow an action and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. A man is what he thinks about all day long. Cause and effect, means and end, cannot be severed. If this eighth dimensional spiral, time and space, two pieces of paper bent, folded in half, one dot, two particles, one moment, one existence, one meaning, then yeah, I'll say it. To some degree, to some non-zero amount, in all the ways that matters most to me. To sow a thought and you reap a destiny. And it works both ways. To reap a destiny, you must sow a thought. If a man is what he thinks about all day long, then wouldn't it make sense that a man's life is what he thought about all his life? all those weeks, all those nights in between episode 1 and episode 2, this episode right here, all those nights of pondering and thinking and imagining, those were all thoughts, those were all dreams. And those dreams, no matter how long it took for the action to be reached in completion, led the way, led the path to this moment right here, the present. And those same dreams, this same dream, will lead me to the future. And that is something I believe to be true. You know, not that I was terribly upset or frustrated or mad at myself. Try not to be too mad at myself. Be too harsh on oneself. But I do feel better, a little lighter. This is almost the folly or the foolishness or the ridiculousness of being a human being. Maybe it's just me. Let me not put that on you. I can be silly sometimes. Is that I'll do something that I maybe I've only done a couple times or I like, and I'll feel good from it. And just like I'm pretty sure I felt at the end of the first episode, I feel pretty good right now. I feel mentally invigorated. I feel developed. It's interesting to compare recording this episode right here, talking to you right now, to compare that to talking to myself in my head, in the shower, in the car, whatever, blase. Well, it's maybe through a third-party perspective the same. If you were standing right next to me right now, it would sound or look very little different to me sitting in the same chair and muttering to myself or pondering to myself, but yet somehow it is very so much a different experience. It's a very more, getting beside my own vocabulary and grammar here, it is a much more fulfilling, enriching experience recording these. It is a much more gratifying experience and conversation, discussion, talking to you right now. I don't know what's the knowledge that you're listening to me, and maybe you're not even listening to me. Maybe you're listening to the music, which, well, I didn't mention it because I was thinking so hard, but it is very nice. Part of the reason why I chose this game, those Tetris, very mentally stimulating. But yeah, it is very different, and this is probably gonna end up happening every episode, but can't help it, and this could be worse. I feel a need to be grateful. I feel gratitude. This actually is relevant to tonight's episode topic. While I was talking, a thought of I should be grateful. I should express my appreciation and my gratitude to you listening right now, to the people listening. I had the thought. I don't know if I sold the thought, but I was open to it. My mind was fertile enough to receive it. And with the thought, I reaped the action. It wasn't intentional, like, because at this point, I've been talking for approximately half an hour or so. It's stream of conscious to a degree, which in itself, never done this before, linguistically or literally, but stream of conscious is not very conscious. You're not intentionally or as deliberately preparing or choosing your words ahead of time. So when I had the thought to show gratitude and express it, the action of me expressing that gratitude and saying those words of, well, I didn't say them yet, but I'll say them now. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for giving me your time and attention. That action like the seed inside the fruit was already there. It wasn't intentional. I required no provocation. I wasn't very conscious, but I did it. I sowed it. And with that action, sowing that action, I think I can say I reap a habit. Because I will say, and if you know me, you probably know I have for a good amount of time and still do try to make it a habit of showing appreciation when I feel it. The whole thing of giving people their flowers when they bloom. So if I sow that habit, I must ask myself, I must introspect, have I reaped the character? Am I gratitude? Well, that sounds a little self-indulging. But not completely inaccurate. I do think there's an important distinction to make between character, as we're speaking of it now, and labels or titles or occupation, you know? Like, I wouldn't label myself necessarily as gratitude or appreciation, you know? It's not like that's all I am or the main thing about me, or even that I do it well or completely chose to do it. I mean, I do try to choose to do it, but regardless, it's not my job. You know, it's not what I wouldn't put it on a resume. I wouldn't put it on a bio of myself. I wouldn't put it on, if I met an alien and I had to describe myself to the alien so they can identify me, I wouldn't say pick the gratitude one. But in terms of character, in terms of who I am, in terms of my identity, it is a facet of my identity. It is me. I think an important part of character is not only what you are or who you are, it's also what makes you you. You know, the human body is majority water, right? We're not water. You wouldn't label yourself as water, classify yourself as water. Water is not your occupation. You wouldn't tell an alien, pick the water one. Well, maybe, depending on their own biology and perspective on that, but regardless. Human body is mostly water. And when you drink water, you're refilling yourself, replenishing yourself. When I exercise gratitude and show my appreciation, I find it is almost as rewarding as you would think it would be for the other party. Initially, you think gratitude is for the person you're showing it to, but truthfully, well, I don't know about truthfully, but honestly, gratitude is also for yourself. When I show gratitude and appreciation for others, for you, puts a smile on my face, smile on my heart. So yeah, I'd say I reap the character of it. Doesn't mean I fall short, and doesn't mean I always do it, but it is a part of me. It does replenish me, makes me feel more me. So, I guess I can say I sow the character. I sow the character of gratitude. Do I reap a destiny? Once again, seeds and fruit. I must admit, and if I'm to say true to my reasoning, if gratitude is of my character, if gratitude is something I do, something I am, if it is the vehicle that takes me through life, then it is my path. It is my destiny in some regards. I'm one of those people that kind of exist in the present, quote unquote, you know. Here's a quote that I've said for a while, never truly given crazy thought to, but unpolished as it is, I do hold true to it to some degree. Degree is becoming one of those words that I've said too many times in an hour span. Regardless is due. Here's an original quote by myself. The past never happened, and the future never comes. All we have is the present. Now, I'm not going to get into that too deeply because, like I said, it is very unpolished and it's almost vulnerable to expose and dissect. But maybe one day, don't know if one day soon, but one episode, maybe a special one. If I find a reason for an episode to be more special than the others, they're all special to me. I'll dive into that. But that kind of gives an example or perspective just how I see things. So in terms of destiny is also often tied to the future. But to me, the future never comes because you're always living in the present. The future becomes your present. The present, therefore, is your future. Every second passes. So going back to gratitude, if I sow the character of gratitude, then I reap a destiny of gratitude, but destiny is the future, so it's a future of gratitude. If my future is of gratitude, but the future never comes, then you're always in the present, and they are one and the same, then my present is one of gratitude. And if I'm grateful right now, then I'll probably be grateful in the future, as long as I maintain it. I will, because it's a habit. I feel like I'm talking myself in circles, maybe an 8th dimensional spiral, but all in all to say, thank you for listening, and I hope you also make a habit of listening to putting the pieces together. And one more time, for American essayist and philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson, 1803. Sow a thought and you reap an action. Sow an action and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. Sow a character and you reap a destiny. Thank you.